always happens. This always happens when we review television shows on this show, because of the way I kind of have to force you to binge them. It always turns
At
out like
gunpoint.
I watched this like 3 months ago, so I don't really remember what happened. And Bill binged it all at once, so
Like days ago.
he's forgetting things just because he took it all in so quickly. So we're really not qualified.
We're not qualified to discuss this. Why are we trying? Why don't we just go home? Well, we are home. Why don't we just go to bed? Fuck this. Review over. I was recording all that, so why not? Hello, everyone. I am Bill Worster, a.k.a. Zazubaar. It is the Demons from Outer Space, episode 118. Dylan McCandless, Super DM 64. He is also here.
Yeah. When am I not?
Never. Wow, yeah, you've never not been on this show. Neither have I, though, so you know what? Fuck you. So...
I mean, it's a two-man podcast. If one of us can't make it, we kind of just call it off for that week, you know what I mean?
So, this is one week where we have not called it off, for better or worse. Maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. We'll discuss it. Dylan, what are we discussing on this week's podcast?
We're going to finally talk about Series 10 of the Doctor Who, because I finally convinced Bill at gunpoint to watch it. So we're going to... He binged it all, and we're gonna
Skype point.
At Skype point, he binged it all, and we're gonna discuss the merits. So
yeah, we're gonna discuss the merit badges that it earned in the Boy Scouts.
Of course.
I'm sorry, that joke was beneath me. So
yes. Also not funny.
Well, I mean, yeah. That kind of goes hand in hand. So, first things first, we already talked about the Christmas special that goes along with Season 10, so go watch that, or listen to that podcast. That's not that long ago, if you want to listen to our thoughts on that. So, we're not going to talk about that here. We already discussed it there. It was
yes.
It was more in line with, like, the mixed episodes of Season 9 than it was, like, because the Christmas special for 2015 was fucking great. The Husbands of River song.
Yes. I remember.
Doctor Who, see, because that's the thing. Doctor Who, for me, Season 9 was like a total disaster. At least it got that way towards the end. It got that way towards the end.
Well, it was always a mixed bag, but then...
Especially with the first two-parter. Like, because the first part of that's brilliant, and then the second part is like, okay, this is more of the same.
Yeah, Season 9 was always a mixed bag, even more so than usual, because obviously every season has its good episodes and its bad episodes. But then the way they ended it just completely ruined everything.
Yeah, because especially since that three-parter is like, the first part of it's pretty good, the second part of it's brilliant, and then the third part is total garbage. And you know what sucks about the third part being total... We talked about this already, but you know what sucks about the third part being total garbage? That's when they brought Gallifrey back!
Yeah, and we've been waiting for that.
It's the first time he's gone back to Gallifrey since fucking ever! And it's this horrible, like, really bloated, like, total nonsense, sentimental, nonsensical episode. You would have thought that Clara was a doctor, the way we were treating her death. And I never felt that way about her. She was around for she was around for 2.5 seasons, but they forced her... They forced her into being... Yeah, she was around for too long. But they forced her into being like an Amy or a Donna or a Martha, or any of the companions that people liked. They forced it with her. And I liked her in the beginning. I liked her when Amy was first gone because she was different. But then when she was with Capaldi for a whole season and she had that terrible boyfriend, I was like, fuck this character then. Cast her aside.
Again, she was just there too long. She was supposed to die on several occasions, but they kept bringing her back because I guess Moffat just really has a hard on for Jenna Coleman.
Well, I don't think she was firm enough about leaving, clearly. Because, like, if she wanted to leave, she would have left. Like, I think she was like, I might leave, but Moffat was like, no, stay. However the hell he talks.
I like to imagine that it sounds exactly like that. It's actually not how he sounds at all.
No, I haven't listened to an interview with him in a long time, though. It's been a while.
Actually, you know what? It's a little closer than I'm giving you credit for. I like how I'm reviewing your Stephen Moffat impression now instead of talking about Doctor Who.
In a way, that might be more fun. No. Perhaps not. So point being, I was very disappointed with season 9. I was, but that was the thing. The Husbands of River song totally got me back in. It was great. And then Doctor Who went on a break, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. They ended on a high note. That last season ended up as trash, but you know what? They'll pick up the trash, and they'll pick it up next season. And then the next Christmas special, I think it was the fact that the Husbands of River song was great, and then the return of Dr. Mysterio was just kind of okay to bad, that I think kind of made me like less excited for this upcoming season, because I was like, oh, Doctor Who's going to be exactly the same as it always was. It's going to be less than average modern CG effects, and it's going to be like them being afraid. It's going to be Stephen Moffat afraid to put these characters in any kind of actual danger or in any kind of actual interesting situation, and it's just going to be them throwing like a variety of jokes at each other that sometimes hit and sometimes don't, and it's like the characters just like proving how cool they are to each other. Like that's what Stephen Moffat has turned into his formula that I've really become unattracted to of late, of the past like 3 or 4 seasons of Doctor Who, that he didn't have in the beginning. It felt fresh and mysterious and interesting in the beginning, and now it's like this formulaic nonsense. Or at least now that's how it felt to me before I sat down and watched this season.
As much as I feel that Moffat, at least like peak Moffat, so like season 5, season 6, early Moffat, as much as I feel that he was better at running the show at those times, in the early times, than Davies was, the thing about Russell T Davies, and the thing you got to admire him for, is he knew when he was done. Like he's like,
he was like, fuck this, I'm out of here. People don't like my stuff anymore. Even though again, the stuff that I liked season 4, so.
He did 4.5 seasons, and he was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I'm out of ideas. I can't do this anymore. And he did. And then Moffat, God, how many seasons has Moffat done now?
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, fuck. I just lost it. He's done 6, I think.
6. Like...
Well, think, because 3 seasons for Doctors, and then, like,
it's just
4 or 5
many.
Christmas specials or whatever? Or 6 or 7, I don't know.
I think he just extended himself too far. He emptied his bag of tricks and then had to keep recycling them, and he got
too popular.
I'm glad that he's moving on. Him and Mark Gatiss are doing this Dracula thing now, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that'll probably be really cool. Hopefully,
maybe if he takes some time and distances himself from Doctor Who, maybe he can come back in the future and just write like individual episodes, and maybe he can get back to like Blink quality if he really if he spends enough time away from it. But right now, I think he needs to go away.
I'd like to see Russell T Davies come back before Stephen Moffat would come back, and then maybe he can come back after that. But Russell T Davies hasn't come back since he left, so I don't know.
But now his series, his tenure is at an end. We're getting Chibnall next year. All new showrunner, all new everything, all new genitalia. It's coming.
Yeah, I'm really glad Moffat is not handling any of that, because it'll probably be a million times more interesting without him. But
yeah, I still need to go watch Broadchurch to figure out how I feel about Chibnall.
And the new Doctor, because she's in that as well.
He's written some episodes of Doctor Who before, from what I understand, but I don't know which ones he's written.
Not great ones. One or two of them is like good to okay, but then the other ones are like, oh, don't like that. I can't remember the titles, but that's the way I remember breaking down.
I need to go watch Broadchurch to assess his abilities as a showrunner. Because one name.
I watched the first episode of that a long time ago. I remember liking it, but it was it's one of those things that I don't like, where it's like really heavy and it's about people being sad, and I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this for like 4 hours. Like, I have better things to do.
But see, like one name that had been thrown around some as a possible person to replace Moffat was Toby Whithouse, and I was super excited about that because he did Being Human, which is the show that I love,
and a variety of mixed quality Doctor Who episodes as well.
Yeah, that seems to be a running theme, doesn't it?
Well, because it's with Moffat, all of the ones that he had written were good. So when he took over, it was like a godsend. Like that's what Moffat had that gave him the fucking 6-season run. Is that he had that popularity, but nobody else really had that. Like I don't know if Doctor Who. I think this Chibnall will have to really prove himself with that first episode that he writes, because otherwise I think the popularity of the show will only continue to downward spiral. Although maybe a female doctor will probably help, but that's only gonna, like, the gimmick of that would only last so. And I'm not saying they did it as a gimmick, although at least not entirely.
That's the reason that I was really hoping that they would do that for, like, maybe 14 and not 15 or not 13, because we just did it with Missy, so it does feel like a gimmick at this point.
I don't know. It's partially, at least, like, from the marketing department's point. I'm not saying, like, the showrunners felt that way about it, but the marketing department probably feels that way about it.
Yeah, definitely.
But I feel like Moffat would have played it more that way, and I'm hoping that Chibnall won't, because I think that idea will be more fun if it's not played gimmicky, if you do something interesting with it.
You know who would be an interesting idea as a showrunner, but they would never do it because he's too big of a name?
Who?
Imagine if Neil Gaiman...
Well, he never came back after season 7 because he had a bad experience with it. He wanted 2 episodes, they wouldn't give it to him, they treated him like shit, so he left.
Yeah. It would be interesting to me because he's written 2 episodes of Doctor Who at this point, and one of them is, like, really good, one of the classics of the Moffat era, and the other one is all right,
thoroughly fine. It's got Warwick Davis in it.
So I would be, it's not the best thing he's ever written. In fact, a lot of people really hate that episode, but there's enough in it that I like. Evil Matt Smith is fun.
That is fun.
But yeah, he would be an interesting choice. But yeah, besides the problems that he had behind scenes, he's just too big of a name. I don't think they could have ever gotten him, like, full time.
He's also too old. He would never do that at his age. He's got too much money and too little time on his hands. He's writing books in his spare time now, so he has no time to run Doctor Who.
No. They probably never get an American either, which is a shame because I've got some great ideas. Anyway,
they'll never hire you, Dylan. That's the ultimate tragedy.
Right? Fucking racists.
It's not really racism as much as it is, like, common sense. Anyway, so why don't we...
Nationalism.
Listen.
Nationalism. Different from racism, but...
Listen, child. We're going to talk about Doctor Who now.
Haven't we been?
Well, in a way. But now I want to actually get into this, so this podcast will not be 3 hours long. Because that's how long the last one was when we talked about an entire season in one go. I'd like that to not happen again. So what I want to ask you up front is your general thoughts on Season 10 of Doctor Who. And then we will go episode by episode and discuss our individual thoughts. So start off, Dylan McCandless, Super DM 64.
Okay, so general thoughts. Well, just a short sum up of what's been going on with Capaldi's run before this. We've already touched on this a little bit.
Bullshit. No, I'm kidding.
Season 8 is a fairly strong season. It has its missteps. It's not one of the best seasons in my opinion, but it's not one of the worst. It's pretty good. Season 9, total fucking dumpster fire. But
worst
season
one
10,
since season 2, yeah.
Wonderful thing about season 10 is that I feel like Capaldi finally got material that was worthy of him. I feel like he's gotten to go out on a bang. We'll see how the Christmas special goes, but so far he's really gone out with a bang, especially the finale of this season. Holy shit, we'll get to that. But so far it's been exactly what I wanted. It's been Moffat, who I do like despite his flaws, and Capaldi, who I really love as the Doctor, but who has never gotten what he's been due as far as material to work with. It's them getting to finally live up to their potential before they leave. So it's a pretty strong season, I think. It's got a few episodes here and there that maybe not as good as the others, and that's to be expected with any season. But on the whole, it feels pretty good.
I would have to agree. I think this is a really solid season of Doctor Who, and it got me excited and interested in the franchise again, because I was totally out of it for about a solid year or so. I was like, fuck Doctor Who. He's got a dumb face. That changes a lot. And they're all dumb and a dumb box. But I'm totally back into it now.
Peter Capaldi's face is a national treasure. No, his hair. His hair is a national treasure.
A treasure of what nation? You fucking nationalist.
Britain. But also we're the second biggest Doctor Who fan country now. Probably. I don't know. Maybe that's Australia.
That might be Australia. Yeah.
I don't know,
Especially nowadays.
But I feel like when Americans obsess over something, they obsess harder than any of those other countries. So we might be.
I'm not saying about obsessing harder. I'm saying about more people, and that might be Australia in this current day and age, where Doctor Who is not as popular as it once was in America.
Perhaps.
But that's not the point. I really like this season, and here's why. A couple things. So, he's not sad at the beginning. He's not mourning Clara. He's not mourning anybody. He's dealing with a problem, but he's living up to a promise. And that's really interesting, which is mysterious. The Doctor is doing something mysterious, which is nice. And as always, Stephen Moffat sets up some like bizarre Deus Ex Machina. That's not bizarre, but it's like there's something in a box, and you don't know what's in there. But it doesn't really it's not about the mystery of what's in the vault.
No. The interesting thing is we find that out halfway through the season, so that's not even really what the big reveal is.
And I knew it already anyway, so it wasn't a mystery to me. It's because it's not about what's in there. It's about the fact that the Doctor is supposed to be staying at this university guarding it. Which is the other thing that really, really works this season, is that Peter Capaldi is a professor at a university as the Doctor. Man, what a perfect status quo for him.
If anything, I wish we had seen it a little more, because it had the potential to be like his John Pertwee unit era. You know what I mean?
It does feel that way. It feels better than that, though, because it doesn't have that limitation of like he's working for somebody else. I was actually kind of relieved to not get unit directly in this season, because they were in the last two seasons a lot, and I really didn't like that Zygon stuff that they were in. So
we got a little unit, and that was good. A little unit goes a long way.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Something that no one has ever said in the history of the human race. But no, go on.
Really like the new companion. I think that they do a really smart approach with her of setting her up as like our protagonist in the midst of what's going on with the Doctor in this mysterious context. And again, it's smart to throw us in the middle of him doing something that we're not sure about what's going on. You know, we know who Nardole is. We saw where the Doctor met him, but the fact that he's working for the Doctor is a little bizarre.
Speaking of the companion, super likable, and not in an overly Moffat-y way.
No, she doesn't Moffat it up too much. She gets there a little bit in the end, though.
From what I understand, the actress Pearl Mackie, not really a known quantity when she got this role. From my understanding, I think she had done some theater work, and that was about it. But she really proved that she had some chops this season. Well done.
She's great, and again, I think it's because they don't make her like this end all be all like thing for the Doctor. Like, oh, she's the great linchpin in his entire life. Like, no, she's just his friend.
And even when they do the thing with her at the end, which we'll talk about, she's still not that. You know,
no, they don't throw her into a time stream that suddenly places her into every era of Doctor Who. Like, nothing like that. She just kind of gets to stick around longer than anybody who wasn't the Doctor's companion would.
Yeah.
Which is where they sometimes fall down, because you're like, all right, Doctor, come on. Let's move on to greener pastures here.
And also, and this is something that always works well for a companion, her and the Doctor just have a great, like, chemistry together that goes really far. I love the nature of their relationship, with him being her professor and her being this sort of, especially early on in the season, she's characterized as like this wide-eyed sort of person who's eager to learn things, and it kind of takes you back to, like, you know, really classic Who, like Hartnell era in that way. And she's asking like really intelligent questions, but not always the questions that you would expect someone to ask in this show. You know, she subverts those expectations sometimes in really funny ways. She's just really great, and you actually get a little bit of a team on the TARDIS this season with Nardole.
I was so happy. It was great.
He had the potential to be terrible, but they pulled him off so well.
Oh, he's awesome because there's a moment that I really like where I don't remember which episode it's in, where he threatens Bill, and she's like, "What are you, like a secret badass?" And he's like, "Yeah," but they never have to show it.
No, she says, "What are you, like a secret badass?" And he's like, "Honey, it's no secret." I was like,
"Oh, right,
that's
that
great.
is a great line." I forgot about that. But point is, we never have to like really see that because he's just a good character anyway. We never have, but there's never like one individual moment where suddenly he does kung fu or something, you know, or like
Right.
blows up 1,000,000 Daleks. Like he's just helpful and he's resourceful and he's funny and he's witty and he cares about the Doctor, and that's all you need.
And I like having someone on the TARDIS who knows tech stuff almost to the same level as the Doctor. That was always
and somebody who's not human. Like that's the other thing that's nice because he's less human than the Doctor is, even, or at least less human than the Doctor pretends to be.
That was always the nicest thing about whenever like River Song would pop up, because she knew like the tech stuff like the Doctor did, and so she got to do things that no other side character typically gets to do, and he had that as well. While also being, a little bit more of a force that the Doctor can talk to, because he knows shit that the Doctor knows that a typical companion doesn't know. It's nice to have that without it being like a fucking boy genius like Adric in the classic series.
I mean, he has license to kick the Doctor's ass, so that certainly goes a long way. I liked all the stuff with River as well, and it was subtle. Like, the picture of her on the desk was nice. And just the fact that Nardole was sticking with him because River was like, hey, he's going to need somebody, so don't leave him, and make sure he sticks to his oath.
Notice how Moffat was able to call back to a previous character who the Doctor was very close with without having to resurrect her from the dead and give her a diner TARDIS. That was very well done.
Yeah, well, they didn't go too far with it. And again, he was resourceful and likable. So, what did you think? So the vault and what's in it is kind of our overarching season. We're spoiling shit here, so there's no need for us to stand on brass tacks. The Master is in the vault. More specifically, Missy is in the vault, and the Doctor has her.
Which I pretty much had figured out, like, the first time we got a Stinger scene of, like, ooh, what's in the vault?
I saw that in, like, the trailers for other episodes that I wasn't following, so I knew that.
They were pretty obvious at the fact that it was Misty, and at the time I was like, oh, that's kind of a weak reveal, but then as the season goes on, you realize, oh, it's not really about that. Because it's about, the sooner you get Missy out of that vault, the better, because the really interesting stuff towards the end of the season is what's going on with Missy.
Yeah. I just want to say this right now. So the kind of end-all, be-all thing of this is he wants Missy to be good. Did you like that? Did you buy that as kind of our overarching goal and sort of the crux of what gets us to everywhere at the end?
Yeah, well, it works because the Doctor, at least in the new series, has always wanted that. I mean, that's basically what they do.
It is very in line with season 3. Yes.
What they do in this season with Missy near the end is exactly what David Tennant sort of begged John Sim to do at the end of season 3. He's like, come with me, and John Sim's like, what, and be like a prisoner in the TARDIS? And that pretty much winds up happening. Like, it makes the season finale to season 3 kind of prophetic now, because they basically do that, which is interesting. It's exactly what the Doctor has always wanted for the Master, again, in the new series under the new characterization of the Master as established by Russell T Davies, and sort of retconned into the classic series. But so yeah, it's very easy to buy because it's perfectly in line with what their relationship has been about in the past, and it's even sort of been hinted at. See, I feel like Moffat has had this idea ever since he introduced Missy, because that was the whole friendship angle was played up a lot in the finale to season 8 and in the opener to season 9. The fact that they're actually they have this weird sort of alien friendship that's like, this hostile sort of thing, but they still care about each other. This weird sort of symbiosis. It's it's something that he's been exploring ever since that character was revealed in season 8. So it
There's
feels
that
very
moment in season 9 where, Clara's like, "You're always trying to kill him," and he's like, "And he's always trying to kill me." It's like our texting.
yeah. It's something that I think felt very natural because it felt like Moffat had actually, and I don't know if that's true. I don't know if Moffat had that in mind for Missy all along, but he certainly did a good job of making it feel that way.
He didn't want to bring the Master back in the Matt Smith days because he thought that he didn't have any better take than what Russell T Davies had done with it of making him a straight up psychopath. But he closed that loop by explaining where the drums came from. So what's Moffat going to do with him after that? He thought he was done. So
Right, exactly. And I think
he came up with a really good way to bring that character back by completely overhauling him and turning him into a her, and then and changing, kind of her, not what she's about, because she's still the same as he always was in terms of like what she's doing, but in terms of like how she goes about it. And
also her motivation undergoes a huge shift.
In this
she
season.
starts not just in this season, but even in season 8.
That's
true.
That's true.
Whole reasoning behind what she
forgetting about what happened at the end of that episode. That's right.
The entire reasoning behind what she was doing in that season was, and maybe it has something to do with the fact that she had become a woman and maybe a little bit more sentimental than she was before.
That seems to be the implication. I'm sure there are people out there who don't like that. But it's subtle enough that I don't even think we can concretely say that's what's going on. But that does seem to be the idea.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of, it's not scientifically accurate.
There are certain biological things to be said there, I guess. I'm not saying it's not unrealistic that might happen. You could also say that it's just what's happened to him/her, though, in that time period, After what happened in the end of time, whatever happened to the Master after what we see in this, and whatever led him to become Missy, could have just led her to be more sentimental when she regenerated. And we've also got to remember that regardless of gender, the regeneration knocks around the brain cells anyway and the hormones, so it changes the personality. So even if he had regenerated into another man, he could have been more sentimental for that reason alone. So
yeah,
who knows?
But I don't know if he would have gone to the same lengths.
Probably wouldn't have made. He probably wouldn't have made out with him, at least not in the same way.
No, or with himself. So yeah, he seems to start to long for the friendship that he once had with the Doctor, and this is just sort of the ultimate extension of that, which again has been set up in the past 2 seasons. So yeah, I totally buy it. I think it's one of the more masterful things that Moffat has managed to do in these 3 very uneven seasons of Doctor Who.
Yes, I would have to agree. The arc of the Master is it's definitely the best element of all of it, because the standalone episodes have been the thing that have been really hit or miss. It's not so much the fact that and the overarching stories have also not been great. It's mostly just that arc that has persisted through all 3 that has been good.
Exactly, and Michelle Gomez is a treat. Both on the show.
And she's great. I might like her more than John Sim.
On the show, in interviews, she's fantastic and hilarious and wonderful and great at playing a psychopath of this nature. Scary Mary Poppins. She's fucking great at it. And I'm sad that she decided that she should go out with Capaldi, but I guess it makes sense. I don't know where they get this idea, though, that they have to go out at the same time as the other actor. That was never an idea in classic Who.
But what they do with that is awesome.
Yeah, that's... we'll talk about that later.
It's really great.
I don't want to get into the finale yet, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get there. So I just wanted to say that I wish the moral ambiguity of what he does with her was a little more... They did a little more with that. Because she's killed a lot of people. And he's killed people for a lot less. I know that she's not the same thing because she's a Time Lord and she's one of his best friends. But at the same time, Doctor, come on. Like, come the fuck on. Like, it's never gonna go well. So, maybe he should... So, at the end of the day, maybe... As a Doctor Who fan who has seen many stories similar to this with the Doctor and the Master, it was a little frustrating to see that and then where it all goes again. But
well, the really interesting thing, though, is that this time the Doctor was right. Again, I don't want to get too much into the finale, but at the end, she did turn good, and he never gets to find out that happened, which is really
but
tragic.
it's so after the fact that it kind of doesn't even matter. Like, what they did together is still, like, largely in effect. Anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to say that as much as I like all the stuff with the Master in this season, I think that overarching, like, idea of it is incredibly problematic in the sense that they don't get into it. They don't get into the ambiguity enough. Again, just because he's killed people. Because they talk about him killing people for a lot less in the season, and they should have connected those two things more. Because that bit is earlier on in the season. Anyway, so we'll talk about that now. So let's get into it. So the first episode, the pilot. Isn't that fun? So we've talked about the setup of Bill a little bit already. Did you find it unusual that they didn't just make her a straight-up student, that they made her like a kitchen staff person who the Doctor happened to notice sneaking into his lectures and then suddenly decided he would take her under his tutelage, and pretty much decides from afar that she's going to be his next companion, because at that current time he's not traveling in the TARDIS. So he's pretty much like, as soon as I do, you're going to be the one.
I liked it because it established this thing that her character has early on in the season that I really like, which is this desire to learn. And just making somebody a student doesn't necessarily imply that, because
that's true. That comes with all this other baggage of like, oh, you're a student, huh? I bet you hate school. Like, yeah, I guess the fact that she isn't, but she's there willingly, is more of a testament to who she is.
Exactly. She's going to these lectures of her own volition. And so it sets up this desire in her character to learn things about the universe and to better herself, which is great, because that's essentially the best thing you can have in a companion for Doctor Who. I mean, that's what makes Sarah Jane Smith great and go on to be like the star of her own spinoff and shit. Like you want that. And so Bill has that in spades, I think.
Mm-hmm. I would have to agree. And I really like the bit where he summons her to his office. I don't. It's very unusual. Like, who did he request? Like, send this specific kitchen staff person up to my office. It's like, he must have used the psychic paper.
Maybe.
It's a really good scene. It's a really good scene though, because he's appropriately creepy and mysterious and clever and funny and charming, but also like kind of an asshole. Like that makes Capaldi so great. This season definitely emphasizes why Capaldi is my favorite modern actor to play the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Performance-wise, I don't know if it's the one that's the most iconic to me, but in terms of like which performer I think does the best job, it's him, because every ounce of his screen time is spent just acting the shit out of it, and it's not in that like stereotypical Doctor way. He's
right.
Such a unique Doctor. Like, that's what I think I like about him so much, because he's not the wacky like woo Doctor, he's the more like edgy, kind of irritable, more unpredictable, dangerous Doctor.
I think he's the best.
I think they've softened him maybe a little too much. He was a little more dangerous in the beginning, but he's still pretty fucking dangerous. And they do a good job of reminding you that in this season.
And I think he's the best modern Who actor at giving those big grand speeches that are such a huge part of the character. Whenever
all
Moffat
have to be good at that, though.
Yeah, but I think he does it better than anybody else. I mean, Matt Smith's speeches were often good, but they also came across very Moffat-y. And I mean, obviously the Capaldi speeches are very Moffat-y.
The Matt Smith, Stephen Moffat Doctor Who speech became such a fucking cliche.
Exactly.
Like when he's yelling at that planet and he starts crying, I'm like, oh, does he have to cry?
Capaldi's speeches are much more intense, and often, they're science lessons wrapped up in speeches, which is nice. His monologue from the beginning of that one Danny Pink episode from season 8, that was totally incomprehensible. Everybody loved that episode, and I was like, I don't even know what the fuck was going on in that episode. But
I just love him yelling at people. And that's what he's so good at. And I like that he's still like, again, he's kind of an asshole, and whenever he sees like somebody who acts like an idiot, he snaps at him, even if they're like about to die or whatever. And he still struggles with that too. If somebody dies, he's like, all right. And Bill's always like, what? Somebody's dead. And he's like, yup, that's what happens to people.
If Rick from Rick and Morty were a doctor, I think he'd be closest to Capaldi.
Yeah, I think that's for sure a thing.
With a little McCoy thrown in. Shit, I had something I wanted to say. Oh, how did you feel about the execution of the fact that Bill is a lesbian, which it was major news and could have been a deal breaker for this season, because we've seen how Moffat has handled lesbians in the past. But I thought that they handled it a hell of a lot better than they did with Ginny and Vastra, especially in the first half of the season. There were maybe a few moments towards the end of the season where they became a little bit more overt with it. But for the most part, I thought it was handled very tastefully.
Yeah, it was done great, without question. I mean, they don't even use the word lesbian.
No, they don't.
And I'm not saying, like, oh, if they did, I'd be turned off. I'm just saying that, like, it's not necessary. Like, I got it.
On the contrary, I'd be turned on.
No, exactly. No, they did it in such a way where it was an element of her character that was important and interesting and unique, but it wasn't, like, the only thing, and it wasn't the major thing. You know, there was so much more to her, and there was so much more to her relationship with the Doctor, but at the same time, it was also just nice to have somebody who wasn't trying to fuck him. There's that really, really awesome moment in the finale where she goes, you know, if I didn't like girls and I liked guys who weren't my age, I still wouldn't like you. Like, that's such a great moment. Like, that's such a killer joke. So yeah, their friendship I bought maybe more than any other. Like it's one of my favorite, like, recent Doctor Who companion bondings, because also she only got a season, and like she was there, she had an impact, she did some shit with the Doctor, and I'll remember her forever. But she's not going to be around for 3 seasons or 4 fucking seasons or whatever to be the end all be all, like, savior of the universe and get her own TARDIS or whatever, you know. So
right. And honestly, I wish she wasn't showing up in the Christmas special, because I thought she was wrapped up so perfectly.
We have no idea what's going on with that, though.
But if she does show up in the Christmas special, I'm fine with that, honestly. And I
mean, it makes sense with where she's left.
Yeah, and it should definitely be the last time, though, I think, unless like 20 years from now, some new showrunner who really likes season 10 decides to Sarah Jane her and bring her back. You know, he's usually in bed by now. I don't know why he's not knocking off.
It happens, you know. You got him wired. It's fair. So, Dylan, why don't we discuss the alien plot of this first one. It's kind of like the first episode of Peter Capaldi's first season, where the plot doesn't really get introduced until like halfway through, like the alien conflict anyway. Like the rest of it is more about like what the Doctor's been doing and what's going on with the characters and setting up the new companion or whatever.
Yeah,
it feels kind of like Deep Breath, where like the first half hour of that was about setting up the new Doctor, and then finally the plot started.
It's also not great. It's
fucking. I mean, listen, it's Doctor Who, but it's fucking weird.
Yeah, it's yeah, similar to. Here's where I fall down on the pilot. It's a great introduction to this season and sort of a relaunch from what had come before, because I think everybody knows that season 9 did not go over well, and this was an episode that was all about saying, hey, we're back, we're doing something a little different, that this is interesting again, look what we're doing here. It's really great at doing all of that. It's great on selling you what this season is going to be. It's great on selling you Bill and the mystery of the vault and Nardole as a permanent fixture on the TARDIS. Well, permanent for the season, obviously. It's great at selling you all that, but the alien plot is kind of weak, and ultimately it's not really about the alien plot. It's about all that shit that I was just saying. It accomplishes its goal, but the normal things that a Doctor Who episode normally does kind of fall by the wayside because it's focused on doing something else. You know what I mean? It's like does any of that?
The alien plot is also like really simple. It's weird and bizarre and nonsensical, but it's also very simple.
Yeah.
So that makes it like, it doesn't feel superfluous, but it just feels unmemorable.
Right. And again, I think...
And I think that this one, it also feels like, because we don't know the specifics of where exactly it comes from, it feels less interesting. Like, we don't know what species this puddle came from. We don't know why they have fuel that is psychoactive and can eat people and contain their soul and essence. Like, we don't know what kind of fucking species this was. I'd like to have known. I want to know what they were doing in that fucking alley.
And turn them into like weird interdimensional creatures that can travel vast distances in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Well, she's better. She's better. The pilot is better at flying through space than even the Doctor is, and it's really weird.
It's also like that idea of the puddle ate her because she wanted to run far, far away, Forrest Gump style, or Jenny from Forrest Gump style. And
yeah, you fucked up.
And I corrected myself, and then it just swallows her up, and then suddenly it's gonna fly off. So if it needed that, I don't understand why they would make something like this. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you make something that has to eat a person or some kind of sentient thing with the desire to leave, and then you'll be able to leave, but you'll also have to fulfill all the goals of that sentient life form? Because then the fuel is like, okay, so the girl wants Bill, so we'll have to get Bill so that way we can actually leave. So that's why the Doctor and Nardole and Bill are being chased, and why they have to go to Australia and a bunch of other places and across the universe and everything. But I'm just like, what the fuck does the fuel care about the girl? Like, about Bill? Now, maybe the fuel doesn't know. Maybe the fuel is not sentient in any way, except it just... But how does it know that this girl wants to leave, then, if it's not sentient?
I think it's clearly sentient. I don't think it's necessarily supposed to behave in the way it's behaving in this story, and I think that's where you're getting hung up, because you're like, why would they design something like this? I don't think it's designed to do the specific thing that it's doing. It's one of those instances of like alien tech abandoned on Earth, and then that alien tech, it's sort of like the gas mask children from the Empty Child. The nanogenes weren't supposed to do that. It was just this weird thing that happened because of the way that they interpreted.
It's not a sensible side effect though, like that was. Like the gas mask makes sense because they think that's what a person is supposed to look like, so that's why they give everybody the gas mask.
The idea seems to be this fuel. It's some sort of weird alien sentient fuel.
Why does it need a person with the desire to leave?
Well, see, that's the element of it that isn't.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, that's why they call her the pilot. Maybe they need to transport something, they need something or some kind of living thing to transport, I guess, or something to desire transportation, I guess, because the fuel itself does not have any need to get somewhere. It is merely a means to an end. So I guess the idea is supposed to be that somebody has to have need of it, but
it's a ship basically. It's a weird sort of liquid
I don't like
alien
this.
ship.
This is why I stopped watching Doctor Who. It gets me mad.
Listen, okay, so you're overanalyzing this. This is how it works. It's also kind of like that TARDIS that somebody tried to build in that flat, in that episode from season 5. It needs a pilot. All it is a ship. It exists for the express person of transporting things through space, but it doesn't have anyone to transport. And then along comes, so it just sort of lays there inert. And then along comes this girl who has this desire to travel, and it can sense this because there's all kinds of psychic technology in Doctor Who already, so that's no stretch.
They already said it was psychic. I just wanted to know why. I just want to know why these aliens made psychic gas.
Well, yeah, that's ultimately the element of it that needs more explanation. But the actual
Which
mechanics
is interesting. I would have loved to have known why aliens made psychic gas, but they didn't get into that.
So it finds this girl, and then she wants to leave. It wants to leave, but it doesn't have anyone to transport, and so she becomes the pilot, so to speak. It's a Venom suit sort of deal.
Is it? Or does the gas absorb her consciousness and then her body is gone? Or is her body actually in the gas?
Well, her body
and by gas, it's not a gas; it's a liquid, but it's gas. It's like it serves the same purpose as gasoline. So that's why I'm calling it gas.
It's her body has been absorbed into it and transformed into this sort of. They've basically fused into this one new creature, this liquid person.
So it is Venom. Okay.
Yeah, it's very Venomy. But that was my.
I see. My
station of what happened.
See, but don't you think they should have developed it a little more, given us reason to not care so much about that not making sense by doing something more interesting with it?
Yeah,
I like the conceit. It's a better conceit than it is like an actual like alien conflict, though, because at least then it gives us a reason to like gradually show Bill like what the TARDIS can do.
Right. Yeah,
which is nice.
That's true. Again, this episode. It doesn't. It's one of the rare episodes of Doctor Who where the alien plot doesn't even matter because
that's what I was saying. It's unmemorable because it doesn't. It's
matter.
It's really simple, but it doesn't make any fucking sense.
This episode isn't trying to accomplish what the typical Doctor Who episode is trying to accomplish. This episode is all about introducing us to Bill and introducing Bill to the TARDIS. And if you think about it. Very few of these companions being introduced episodes have a really strong alien plot going for them. I mean, Rose is pretty paper thin.
That was an old school enemy too. That had that virtue.
Martha's was maybe the best of those three. Donna had two of them. One being a so-so Christmas special, and the other one being
episode's pretty good.
And the other one being like a weird fat monster thing. I mean, Amy...
That one's good despite itself.
Amy had floating eyeballs and space snakes and
I really like. I think that's my personal favorite. I think the 11th Hour is still like my personal favorite Doctor Who introduction episode.
I think it does it the best. Taking an alien plot that isn't necessarily doesn't necessarily have the most to it, but using it as a vehicle to just introduce a new companion and get them acquainted with the Doctor. I think you're right.
It's also one that's scary, but it's also like it's wonderfully Doctor Who, and it makes sense in this kind of grandiose cosmic sense. Like the idea of a space alien escaping from a high-tech prison and then hiding out on Earth in like some little girl's house. That's right. Brilliant for Doctor Who. And then the fact that that the wardens of that prison put the Earth on lockdown to get the prisoner back. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's like you said, I think that's the best example of this. But anyway, it's sort of a thing. New companion episodes don't typically have the best alien plot going for them because they're not about that. They're about the new companion and the new dynamic and all that shit. Some of them have more new things to introduce than others, obviously. I mean, Amy, that was a lot to take in.
The 11th Hour is so good because it knew exactly what it had to do, and it had so much to accomplish in such a basic amount of time.
Yeah, and as I was just saying, it's the most drastic because I think it had the most new elements to introduce.
It feels like a pilot for a new show.
It's the new tone that Moffat was doing in that season being introduced, which is very different from what Russell T Davies had always done. It's a new Doctor. It's a new TARDIS. I mean, for the first time, because the TARDIS barely changed between Eccleston and Tennant. People say that it's a different TARDIS, and I really don't see the difference.
It's slightly bigger, and the colors are a little different.
Ooh, yeah. So it's the first time we get a dramatically new-looking TARDIS in the new series. And all that's going to be fascinating to see how it goes down with Chibnall's season, because we're getting that again, the first full reboot since the 11th Hour. It's going to be interesting.
We get a new TARDIS again. We've had this one for a long time, the one we have now.
I think we will.
We'll get one that's all girly and shit. No, I'm kidding.
I wouldn't mind if they did a what they did in the TV movie back in the day, where it was the inside of the TARDIS just looked like a fucking house, and there were armchairs and shit. That would be. I
kind of wish they would do it where it's it's not obviously a room. It's where they do it where it's clearly some kind of I don't know, layers upon layers. It's like an onion.
I see. Well, that's very abstract, but I'm sure that you.
I want an onion-esque TARDIS.
I see. You want Shrek the TARDIS.
I want Shrek, but a TARDIS. Is that so much to ask?
Yeah, a little bit. Nah.
So all right,
not the easiest thing in the world to ask for. I'll put it that way.
Well, fair enough. All right, why don't we move on to the next episode? Smile. So what did you think of Smile?
I like it a lot. I think I don't remember too much about it. This was the second episode of the season. I didn't rewatch these before this episode, which maybe I should have done. That would have been a professional thing to do.
Of all the Doctor Who cliches, this one is one of the ones that I like. I like the one where they go to a place and it's abandoned and something fucked up happened there. That's one that I like. I can deal with that one. I don't like it when they go there and it's sort of abandoned and then there's 4 or 5 people that are surviving that they have to team up with and it's aliens. I don't like that cliche because we do it all the time. And of course we do it a few times this season. Mostly, and it's mostly fine.
Well, it technically wasn't abandoned in Smile, but the other characters were in hibernation for most of the episode.
I was going to say, it eventually gets to that cliche, and then I was like, oh, but this is clever and different because we had to get there. It reminded me a lot of that Tom Baker story where he goes up to that satellite, and it's like a medical station.
The Ark in Space?
Yes.
The one with the colony ship with all the frozen people and the green
insects on it, yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of that.
Yeah, it is very reminiscent of that. Now that you mention that, that's interesting.
Except with emojis. So that, I mean, that was the thing that it was sold on, was the fact that you have these robots that communicate via emojis and they kill people.
Yeah, why is that a selling point? Why are Doctor Who and Hollywood trying to market emojis as a good thing? I don't.
Because kids like them. Dylan, but you don't understand. I work in a service industry where we sell things shaped like emojis because it's that same mindset. And it fucking works, though. But it works on older people who think that that's what their kids like. You know, that's who it's for. It's not for the kids. It's for the older people who have to buy stuff for those kids because they know that that's something that's identifiable to them that they like, you know?
Yeah. Okay, sure, fine. But this is Doctor Who, though.
True, but it's Stephen Moffat. I think that element of it is
this wasn't a Moffat script, though.
Oh, that's true. Well, whoever wrote it, I think that's the element of it that they tried to like. But maybe that wasn't their idea to sell in on that, because it's not really the major point of the episode. The emojis, anyway. Like, the point of it is more that the robots want you to be happy. That's the really interesting thing. That's what I liked so much about it, is that the robots will kill you if you're not happy. Which I think is almost more, is better commentary on our modern era. You know, where there's like this pressure to be optimistic and have a positive, wholesome outlook, you know?
Well, I like, and by like, I mean I like in a sci-fi way, where I like the idea, but I'm also terrified by it. I like the concept that in this version of the future, human language has devolved to the use of emojis, because that
idea is okay.
That doesn't seem too impossible, honestly.
I like the idea of building a colony around a spaceship out of robots. That was cool.
So once that was introduced as the reasoning behind the emoji bots, that was fine with it. It's like, oh, well, that's actually like a really neat sci-fi idea. Cool. Not just, hey, we're gonna put emojis in this episode. LOL, random.
But I like that it they didn't pretend like it was a fun place like before that. Like, I like that they didn't get there and I was like, oh, it's a fun emoji place. Like, you know, like they get there, they instantly are like, things are weird, and
like the stinger at the beginning might have spoiled a little too much about.
Yeah, that was completely unnecessary, was it not?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the smiley robots were going to be a threat. I mean,
if you watched the teaser, then yes.
If you've seen any episode of Doctor Who ever, you know that's going to happen. They're very reminiscent to me of the hand robots from that one Amy episode, season 6, I want to say. But yeah, that stinger at the beginning, I don't think you needed. I think it spoiled a little bit too much. It wasn't a bad scene. I would have liked maybe even to have seen it later in the episode as like a flashback or a security footage or something, but it didn't work where it was placed, I didn't think. But that's a minor problem. Ultimately, this is just an okay episode. I don't really have a
it's one of my favorite standalones.
Interesting. So you really, really like this episode, and I was just sort of like,
I liked
that's all right.
it more than some of the other standalones that didn't stick out to me as much. I didn't think it was like the best one, but I liked it quite a bit.
Okay. I like that the season stuck to the classic. I like the
next one more, though. I think this and the next one are about even with each other. You tell me. You tell me how you feel.
I'd say that's probably accurate. Yeah, this and the next one.
In terms of just like good, solid, standalone Doctor Who fare.
Speaking of the next one, I find it interesting that they've reverted to the new Who formula with companions, which is always first episode of the new season takes place in the modern day. Second episode, you go to the future. Third episode, you go to the past.
Yep.
It's been a pretty consistent formula.
Yeah, I feel like this feels strangely reminiscent of the Russell T Davies era this season.
Mm-hmm. It does a bit, yeah. Not the whole season, or just this episode you're talking about?
I meant the whole. Well, I think it's more the first part of the season, because there isn't like. Maybe it's just because the companion isn't like some end-all, be-all mystery in the Doctor's life.
Oh, but Russell T Davies started that trend. right? Like, you didn't know that Rose was behind Bad Wolf, but that ultimately was what that wound up being. And then
She was just a girl at first.
in every season after that, though, that was always the thing. Like, you can't blame Moffat for developing that trope. You can blame him for doing it the worst with Clara, but that was firmly established by Russell T Davies. I'm so sick and tired of the companion being fucking Jesus at the end. I've had enough. Not okay. But anyway.
So Thin Ice. So this one takes place in olden times in the 1800s. There's a monster under the ice and it's eating people, and the doctor has to stop it. I like how simple this one is. It allows time for our characters to talk, and that's what I think these 2 episodes are really good at. It allows time for Bill and the doctor to bounce off each other and get to know each other.
Yeah,
and for their dynamic to form, and I think that it's really good at that. And
it's always really cool with the new companion, because obviously the doctor is not a usual type of person, so it's interesting to see how people react to him and all of his craziness.
This is the one where Bill has to deal with the seeing people die and the real consequences and tragedy of traveling with the doctor. And
right.
And the sometimes terrible things that they have to do to get out of certain scrapes.
Did you feel though that they were playing it a little too heavy with her being so freaked out by all the death that was going on?
That was a little Moffat-y. Moffat's done that in the past, where he has people over dramatize things.
Well, it's not even the fact that she was doing it; it's the fact that it doesn't make any sense, because there was plenty of death going on in the last 2 episodes. She maybe didn't get to see it firsthand, and
that was the point that she brought up. Though she says that she's like, I didn't see it firsthand until now, and now I didn't, and I'm only realizing now the full extent of what you do.
But there's that horrifying moment in Smile where they realize that the garden's being fertilized by the dead people, and there's the very first episode, the chick she wants to bone turns into a weird space puddle.
I agree with you, but she doesn't seem to. It doesn't seem to hit her until she sees somebody die in front of her, though, a kid. I think that's what it's about. I think that's the point of it.
She encounters a Dalek in her first episode, which I forgot to mention that when we were talking about the pilot. Great way to put the Dalek in there, because they have to use them every season.
They have to use them, yeah. I thought that was a nice way to get them out of the way as well, because I'm glad we didn't do a full Dalek episode this season, because they've been really overdone of late.
Well, we get one every season, and I said that they just got to be a cameo this time. Yeah, Thin Ice. So what were you saying about Thin Ice?
So I was saying that I think it's nice because of how simple it is, for all the reasons of showing us the balance in the 2 characters. But that being said, the alien plot itself, I do think is good. But again, it's sort of basic for Doctor Who. There's a monster. It's being held I liked the whole it's being held captive by people thing, though. I like that humans were ultimately the bad guys in this one. We don't do that. We don't do that nearly enough.
I like the idea. It is a little bit too similar, though, to The Beast Below from season 5. It's pretty much the same reveal.
Yeah, but what they're doing with it is different, and I liked the idea of it's always been there, and it's been a family secret, and he's the only one that's using it this way.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
The interesting twist that they throw on the Beast Below thing is the profiteering angle.
Yeah, I didn't think it was too similar to the Beast Below. The Beast Below is in space. It's being used for transportation.
But it's essentially the same reveal, though.
Yeah, well, sure. It's the same idea of it's being profited off of and being exploited. But
yeah. It's maybe a little bit more obvious that there is a giant monster under the ice in this than it was that there was a space whale under the spaceship. Mm-hmm. Unless you consider the episode is called The Fucking Beast Below. Yeah, it's ostensibly it's a twist on the same idea.
Yeah, I think I like this more maybe than The Beast Below, though, just because where it goes.
I haven't haven't seen The Beast Below in a while, so I
Yeah,
couldn't.
that's maybe I shouldn't have even made that comparison, but I like where this goes. And the only thing I wish is that the dickhead British dude was developed a little more. He doesn't really like become a thing until like over halfway through the episode.
Yeah, and then when he shows up, he's such a generic sort of mustache twirly, like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill the people, that kind of bad guy.
He's so dismissive of the Doctor. Like he doesn't even really get it. He's one of those bad guys who doesn't even get a glimpse of like the scope of who he's fucking with, and that's disappointing. Like that's always fun when they get a glimpse of like, oh, I've really kind of fucked up here by pissing this person off.
Yeah, because remember the great moment with David Bradley's character at the end of Dinosaurs on a Spaceship.
Yeah.
He had a very
The Doctor murdered him.
Yeah, he had a very similar thing going on in that episode. He didn't know who the Doctor was. He was very dismissive of him. He underestimated him entirely. He was, there doing sort of unethical things for profit. He was essentially the same character. And
except he was murdered.
Yeah, he got to have that moment at the end where he was like, oh shit, because the Doctor, shot him in the fucking face with a missile. So that would have been good to have. I mean, he winds up getting eaten by the creature, though, doesn't he? So that's poetic justice.
That's good poetic justice. I'm pretty sure, yeah. That's good poetic justice. But he's easily dispatched. Like, the Doctor and Bill, like, put almost zero effort into, like, what they do to fuck him over. But I think that that's more because they didn't introduce him until, like, halfway through. If they had gotten more into his shit earlier on, maybe he could have had more of it to do. But I guess the question is then, do you want more development for him or more development for the relationship between the Doctor and Bill, which is what that time was being spent doing? And I guess in that case, this episode played it smart then. And again, I like this one because, and I like this one and I like Smile more than the next one because it's more about showing us natural and good elements of the Doctor and Bill's relationship than it is about the alien plots. Or the first three are all like that.
Yeah.
But I think that this one might just be the best at it because I think it might just have the best balance between the two, except for the villain.
Yeah. I was also glad, and this might be a weird thing to mention, given the fact that this is a British show. But I like the fact that they seem to be aware that not just people in Britain like this show, and then they took time to be like, hey, here's a brief explanation of what the fuck the Frost Fair even is, because I didn't know that shit. That was very helpful.
By the way, there is no fucking way they could have hid that monster under the Thames.
No, it's too big, isn't it?
Way too big. It's way too big. It's not even that, though. Like, you could look under there and see it, like, without question. I don't care how thick the ice is. You would see the shadow without a doubt, depending on where the angle of the sun is. And
nobody ever notices little anglerfish swimming around looking for prey?
Yeah, that's very strange. Like, they're not even anglerfish. Like, when you catch them, they're clearly, like, some kind of weird alien thing. The big monster looks more like an anglerfish than they do.
Yeah, they're just reminiscent of anglerfish because of the whole bioluminescence.
Silhouette-wise, yeah. But when you get close to them, they look very different. But yeah, no, I feel like this one balances out. Like I liked the alien plot a lot in this one, and I liked a lot of what was going on with the relationship between the Doctor and Bill. And I liked all those kids. Shockingly, that's always amazing when you aren't super irritated by them. The one girl who gave Bill like this massive attitude, I didn't love or necessarily understand that. But all in all, I thought that they were a nice addition. I like that they killed the kid and they went forward with it. They went all the way with it. That kid was dead.
Right, Moffat can't let a Clara die, but a little kid can fall into the ice and get eaten by a fish. And
that was awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great. Even in The Beast Below, they
pulled that shit. Oh my god, a child died. Isn't that great?
Even at the end of The Beast Below, they pull that shit where it's like, oh, they haven't digested yet.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They don't pull that. That kid's dead.
It's always nice when they have the balls to go through with that, though. Mm-hmm. Like in Dimension 3, yeah. But anyway, I think it's a pretty solid episode. I think that's been the main theme of these first three. This is a pretty solid episode.
It's like there are issues with this, but it's overall enjoyable.
Exactly. It's not gonna change your life, but it's these three
Unless you
episodes just.
I don't know, unless you're watching it while you're upside down. I don't know.
Ultimately, the point of these three episodes is to make you like Bill and care about her and get used to the dynamic between her and the Doctor
and watch the rest of the season.
And not Nardole yet, because he doesn't come in until episode 5, right? As like a first TARDIS. Which is fine.
Well,
I think
theoretically, we should already, if you've been keeping up with the show, you should already be into him.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he was only in that one Christmas special. Not everybody was even sold on him from that. So they definitely needed to endear him to the audience here and prove that he was a valuable addition to the TARDIS. I think he's just not in these first few adventures. Well, because his original function was to keep the Doctor from going on adventures in the first place, and it is very amusing how the Doctor and Bill are always dodging him in these first 4. But also, I think it makes sense to have the Doctor and Bill alone in the TARDIS for a little while before you bring Nardole in, just to firmly establish that relationship.
Yeah, no, I thought that was absolutely necessary.
It's a lot like what Moffat does with in season 5.
With Amy and Rory. Yeah, you have Amy and the Doctor alone first, and then you bring Rory in.
Yeah, you firmly establish the relationship between Amy and Rory. I mean, Amy and the Doctor, and then you bring in the boyfriend.
And then you bring in River.
Yeah, and then River. Yeah, River first, and then the boyfriend. Interestingly, but River always came.
Yeah, but River wasn't with them traveling until after Rory.
She never consistently got to travel. I would have liked at least one season before that character was done of just getting to see River go on adventures with the Doctor.
Remember, there was a reason she couldn't stay in the TARDIS for a certain amount of time. She would die.
Right, and she was also in and out of prison. Well, what I'm saying, though, is they could have written it differently. For the murder
of the Doctor. Who put somebody... Like, the Doctor should not even exist on any official records in any galaxy. So how the fuck is she imprisoned for his murder?
But remember, that was the whole point of Season 6. Remember, at the end of Season 6, he decided he was going to go back into the shadows because he said, I've gotten too big. Too many people know about me. And then, you remember he had that speech with the blue head guy?
What fucking governmental body put River in prison, though? Because of the Doctor's death.
The Shadow Proclamation, maybe? Or based on the...
That's true. What happened to the Shadow Proclamation? Are they still a thing?
Yeah, they're definitely still a thing.
Why weren't they like, I'm trying to think of
They cameoed at the beginning of Season 9, that snake guy that worked for Davros when he was going around the galaxy looking for the Doctor. There's a moment where he
went to the Shadow Proclamation, that's right.
Yeah, so they're definitely still around, and the Jadoon are still out there doing shit. They just need a showrunner to come in who wants to use them again, and then they'll be in an episode.
Yes, we got to see the Jadoon again, that's right. I would like to see the Jadoon in a full episode again, with their little pen markers.
Chibnall, bring back the Jadoon. We haven't got to see them since Season 9.
And the Angels, please. It's been a while since we've had the Angels.
Yeah, but you got to figure out a way to do them scary again, because they haven't been done scary since...
since Statue of Liberty shit, oh my god.
Really, since Blink. They weren't really scary in the two-parter from Season 5, although they were compelling.
You're out of your goddamn mind. Okay, maybe not scary. I will give you that they maybe weren't as scary, but that's a good fucking two-parter, though.
It's a two-parter. I'm just saying they're not scary, and I think the ultimate mistake that they made was showing them moving. And I know they used the excuse of, like, the lights were flickering really fast so you could actually see the movement, but it just still didn't work for me. I need, and I like the way it was executed in Blink, where, you don't see them move. You just see the results of their movement, and there's something so much scarier about that to me.
When
anyway,
when their previous victims start talking to the Doctor, though, that's fucking creepy.
Speaking of scary things and Doctor Who attempting to be scary and not always succeeding, let's move on to Episode 4, Knock Knock.
Yeah, I didn't really like this one that much. It more picks up at the end.
Me either. This is the first episode of this season that I actively sort of didn't like. And honestly, I'll disagree with you. I think it falls apart in the second half.
Really? I wasn't into it at all.
In the first half,
until the ending where they're like, "There's a tree woman," and I'm like, "Oh, wow! I didn't expect that."
Yeah, no, you know, in the first half, I was kind of intrigued by the sort of horror movie Doctor Who thing where these kids move into this house and there's all
Oh
these weird
please!
creeping.
Every episode is a horror movie, though.
No, 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 no.
Not okay, not every episode, but a lot of the time that's usually this show's mo.
We haven't had a good horror movie Doctor Who since like what midnight. Um,
There was the
uh,
one with the ghost monsters who wanted to fuck with Matt Smith and Clara.
yeah, that's right, but that wasn't good.
It
Anyway,
was okay.
uh, what was I saying? Um, anyway, I was intrigued by the mystery in the first half, and then the payoff I didn't think worked at all. As soon as the weird bugs came,
I wasn't intrigued by the mystery at all.
as soon as the bugs came in, I was like, all right, this is stupid. And then the it's not a terrible idea. The guy thinking that the tree woman is his daughter, but then at the end you find out that he's actually her son, which is
That was fucking ridiculous. I didn't understand or like that. That was just really unnecessary to overcomplicate things like that. I just liked the idea that it turned out to be more than just there were ghosts or some kind of weird monster in the fucking house. It was
but I knew there
the dude was trying to do something. Like that's what I liked.
but I knew that there was going to be a tree woman in the episode. Like the trailer for the episode had already told me about that.
I did not know about the tree woman, so
And so the whole episode, I'm waiting for this tree woman, like tree woman. What's the deal with the tree woman? And then she shows up, and they do the thing with her, and I'm like, that was really underwhelming to me. I don't know.
that's totally fair. I mean that only worked for me in the sense that I didn't know there was a tree woman and I was surprised by that enough that I was satisfied with. But again, but Dylan, I liked that there
It could have been
wasn't
done.
just another monster, you know, that there was a real like it was another one where there was a guy who did a bad thing with some alien technology. That's what I liked.
And I don't like the bugs because I don't like that as, it's not really the house that's killing people. It's these weird bugs that sort of phase them into the wood. See, I was hoping that the wood itself was going to be what was killing the people because there's already a precedent in Doctor Who for like trees and like wood and shit being alive, and it's always been done in like really shitty episodes, like the in the Forest of the Night or the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe.
That
But
is
there is this
another weird fucking episode.
But there is this idea that trees in this universe are sort of alive. So how interesting would it be if you just had a house made out of wood that had decided that it hated people? Like instead of like benevolent trees, like in the Forest of the Night, you have this sort of like bitter, evil, like wood house that just wants to eat people. I don't know. It could have anything really, other than these weird fucking bugs that were pulling people into walls, and then they turned the woman into a wood woman for some reason, and then I don't know. And I didn't care for it.
I didn't really care for it myself. I didn't like the villain, his performance. Why weren't they suspicious, Dylan? Like what the fuck? Like he was such a sketchy motherfucker. He didn't even know who the prime minister was.
See, that's that horror movie element coming into play again.
I did
why
how they were like, well, it's cheap.
why does nobody in Friday the 13th give a second thought to the crazy old man that's like, don't go to the lake, you'll die.
I really liked when the doctor was like, yeah, I'm going to stay here with your friends. We're going to chill. And then she's like, oh god, like that moment was hysterical.
At
At one point, I'm pretty sure the doctor did say "fam," and I think at that point I died a little bit, but at the same time I thought it was still pretty funny. I don't think that was in this episode. I think that was in another episode though.
There are two moments in this season where Moffat does his sort of, hey, isn't this funny? Hashtag millennials thing. It's when the doctor says fam, and then at the end of the season when Missy does a dab.
When did Missy do a dab?
At the beginning of the season finale. There's a moment when she's sort of dancing around in the room pretending to be the doctor, and this is all shit that we're not supposed to be talking about yet, but whatever.
Oh,
She does a
that's
dab.
right.
Watch the episode again. She hits a fucking dab. The internet like exploded. They were like, Missy did a dab, like fucking memes and shit. Anyway,
Man, do you think Michelle Gomez has ever taken an actual dab?
I mean, obviously she did. I think that was probably her idea.
No. I mean like an actual dab hit.
Man. You meant a dab in the weed way.
Well, it's not exactly weed, but yeah.
I mean probably.
I know
I'm
you.
pretty sure that the dab in this episode of Doctor Who that I was referencing, it was probably her idea because it just feels like the kind of thing she would throw in.
It's. I mean, as an improv, it works way better as an improv thing than it would have if it was fucking scripted. Like,
Can you imagine reading that?
Can you just imagine Missy Dabs? Like,
that's like a beat in the script, Missy Dabs, and then whoever's reading it, just like, oh my
because that would have to have its own line as well, because that would be an action beat, you know. Like you can't put that in its own in another paragraph. Like that's got to be its own line.
It has to be. Yeah, it has to be an improv because it's the kind of thing that really needs an actor with a certain kind of personality behind it to pull it off.
It's the kind of thing
Michelle
that should
Gomez,
not be planned in advance.
And Michelle Gomez is a crazy person in the best way.
That's true.
So,
that is very true.
Anyway, so neither of us liked it. We disagree on why we dislike it, which is interesting.
Yeah, that was weird. You know, I didn't like the mystery at all. Didn't give a fuck. I hated all of fucking Bill's roommates, except that they liked the Doctor. Like even though he was acting like a total creepazoid. That's the thing I liked is that they were all very tolerant of him. Although they were all familiar with him, which is a nice touch. Is that they all knew him from the school.
Right. That was a good way of making use of that status quo that they had set up in the pilot.
I liked it, Bill. I like that he's like, yeah, I'm her dad, and she's like, granddad.
Yeah, that was great.
I'm clearly not old enough to be your granddad.
Gives her that look, and I'm like, Peter Capaldi, you're so old enough to be your granddad.
You're so old. That's what I've always loved about him is that he's like totally age and gender blind. I love when he's talking about this is again later on, but he's talking about being friends with the master, and he's like, I'm pretty sure I was a man at the time. It's hard. It's a long time. It was a long time ago though. It's hard to remember.
Exactly. He's kind of the opposite of Matt Smith in that way because Matt Smith's Doctor always felt like an old man behind a set of young eyes. He's the opposite. He's like he has this youthful energy, but he's like the oldest face in recent memory to be the Doctor.
Yeah, because he acts like a moody teenager. You know, he doesn't act like an old man. He acts like a teenager trying to be an old man. That's what I always liked about him. He has the hoodie and the black shirt with the stars on it. You know, and the long black coat with the red and the sunglasses. Like he's totally like a moody teenager who's trying to be like obnoxiously like sarcastic, and I love that because it shows you a lot, it tells you a lot about what's going on inside of his head.
Yeah, it reminds me. There's a great line in Time Crash, that little sort of mini episode where David Tennant met 5, where he's talking about why Peter Davidson was his favorite Doctor, but you know, in the context of the show, it's him talking about why he loved being him, and he says, you know, in the beginning I was always trying to be old and important, and then I was you, and I got to just sort of cut loose and have fun. I feel like we've gone full circle now, and he's back to trying to be old and important. Probably because he actually is this time, because he's a hell of a lot
remember
older.
what he just went through on Trenzalore before he regenerated, so he's feeling his age, certainly.
Exactly.
I think he's trying to run away from it though. Like I think he picked that face because he was trying to show like that he should be about saving people. So he's reminding himself of his humanity by picking that face. But the age I think is more about reminding himself of how much time and how much mileage he's put on himself lately. You've also got to remember that he just maxed out his regenerations, and he just got a new set. So, in a way, he should be reminding himself how fucking old he is, because technically he's gone above and beyond where he should have been.
Right. It's interesting. First Doctor of the new regeneration cycle winds up being like the oldest, like looking since the first Doctor of the last regeneration cycle. And there's all kinds of other great parallels that happen between him and Hartnell that I'm sure we'll see played around with in the Christmas special.
Yeah, oh my god, I'm so excited about that. But point being, I like him a lot, and I think that this season is probably his best season. Probably just balance-wise. Like, I feel like it's the most balanced.
Yeah.
Because season 8, man, he is not sure about what. It's not his fault. It's the script. They are not sure about what kind of Doctor they're writing.
Yeah, and I really like season 8 on
Yeah,
the whole, but
I like I
problem.
like the stories more than I do, even like the production value or anything. Like I think it's a way more well written season than 9 is, and it's potentially better written than this season, but this season's more fun.
Well, the problems that season 8 has are way bigger and more glaring than the problems that this season has. Like Danny Pink and
Yeah, he's an absolute. He kills that season for me. Yeah.
shit like that. Coal Hill School. Oh, God, I hate it. I hate
Thank
that
God
thing.
we're done with that shit.
Not
But
if you watch
there
the
are
spin-off,
killer episodes in that season though, like the Caretaker, Kill the Moon, Flatliners.
You like Moon?
I do like Kill the Moon. Yes,
That movie's okay. Interesting.
it's not a movie, but
Yeah, I fucked up, but
I do
that
like.
episode.
Although they've already retconned it because in this season they mentioned the moon at one point, and the Doctor mentions how it's dead, and I'm like, but it's not in this universe anymore because it's an egg. So he lied. I like the Caretaker a lot though, and then I like what's it called? The one with the creatures that aren't really they're the one with no creatures, even though you think there's a creature.
Oh, Silence? No.
No, it's not called Silence. Listen, that's it.
I never did like that one.
You didn't like
That's
that
the
one
one
either?
That's the one I was referencing earlier. Everybody, when that episode came out, I remember was like, "Oh, this episode was fucking great," and I was like, "What the fuck even
That
happened?"
episode
in this
is great.
But nothing happened in it. Like, what the fuck happened in that episode? What was going on?
The Doctor went back to his own childhood. That did happen. So that's certainly a thing.
Okay, but before that, what the fuck was going on
It's
with, like...
the Doctor confronting a mystery in his own life.
But what does it have to do with him? It's all about fucking kid Danny Pink and then, like, old astronaut descendant of Danny Pink. I don't know. Why are we debating...
We already talked about this episode. Yeah, we did a podcast on that one, yeah. So let's move on to Oxygen.
Yes, this for me was the first episode of the season that I thought was beyond what the first 3 episodes were, which I thought were, really solid episodes and great setup for the season. Oxygen was the first episode that really, surpassed that, I thought, and was like, yeah, this is a good episode. The concepts at play, the idea of constantly having to buy more oxygen from this hyper-capitalist future society, that's fascinating.
I love how the maps are measured in breaths.
Yeah, there's a similar episode in Classic Who that I've heard about where, like, some sort of evil corporation, like, controls the sun on this one planet and everybody has to pay for, like, sunlight or something. Anyway, just really cool idea. The space suits that come alive and try to kill the people, that was an interesting monster. Though I know you sometimes don't like episodes that fall under this formula, the base under siege.
Yeah, I didn't love that about this. This one was not. I don't think I liked this one as much as you did, but the concepts here were really strong. The suits that kill people, that's great, and I love how that they need somebody to be in them in order to kill people, which is creepy and disturbing. And I like it when Doctor Who is legitimately creepy.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Vashta Nerada, and anything that reminds me of the Vashta Nerada is a good thing.
It's a little creepier than the Vashta Nerada visually. It's like rotting corpses.
Well, the creepy thing about the Vashta Nerada was that you would still hear their voices after they were dead.
Right.
Like that was some
The Vashta Nerada overall are creepier, I would say.
They need to bring back the Vashta Nerada. I can't believe that Moffat created them and he never brought them back. There was unless they turn out to be the surprise villains of the Christmas special, but I doubt it.
No, we don't have any idea who the villain of that is.
No, if there even is a villain, it might just be like a sci-fi thing that's going on. Doctor Who doesn't always have a villain. Sometimes it's just a phenomenon that he has to figure out.
It might just be the Doctor trying to figure out why his original incarnation is played by a different actor now.
Yeah. Well, that's happened before, though.
It has happened before. He tries to figure out why it's a different actor from that one.
It's like you have the same.
I mean, I presume that guy's also dead, which is not amusing, but it's ironic.
I would say probably.
Yeah, I would assume so. If he's not, he's probably really mad that they're not bringing him back.
That was the 20th anniversary episode, so that was like 30 some odd years ago, and he was already an old crusty man then. So.
Well, every old crusty man they cast as the First Doctor will probably be dead by the next time they decide to bring the First Doctor back.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate about whether or not, online, whether or not it was okay that David Bradley was doing this, even though, because it's one thing to play the guy who played the First Doctor.
They did it already, though.
I know, that's the thing. That's why I don't understand the controversy. This is not a thing.
It's too late for this controversy. It's been done.
Exactly. And I get it. I mean, it's one thing to play the guy who played the First Doctor in a biopic, and it's an entirely different thing to actually play the First Doctor. Fine, fair enough. But again,
what about fucking Davros? Davros has been played by like 15 different actors.
Who?
Davros.
Oh, yeah. Not 15. More like 5 or 6.
But every time they bring him back, usually it's a different actor.
Look at not every time, but yeah.
No, they got back the same guy who played him in season 4 this time.
Right. Well, also I think the second time Davros ever appeared, where the Doctor finds him on Skaro and realizes he's not dead because he thought he had died at the end of Genesis of the Daleks. I'm pretty sure that's the same actor. I might be mistaken about that. But there was a guy in the 70s and 80s, like the Colin Baker / Sylvester McCoy era. There was a period of time where it was this one guy who kept playing the character.
Well, there was an arc where Davros was... there were 2 factions of the Daleks that were at war, and he was working for one of them.
That's Remembrance of the Daleks, and I'm pretty sure that was the last appearance by Davros in the classic series.
Well, yeah, because then the Time War happens.
And it was played by, in that episode, he was played by this guy that I'm talking about. There was a period in time in the 60s, or the 70s and 80s, where this one guy kept playing Davros. So it's not that he's never been played by the same actor more than once, but there has been like 4 or 5, or maybe even 6. I haven't counted. But anywho, yeah, Oxygen.
It felt a little too similar to, and I know it's very different, but again, just this formula to me, visually these things all bleed together. Like visually, it reminded me a lot of the one with the ghost last season.
I'm glad that we didn't use those same orange space suits that have been appearing in every Base Under Siege episode since the Satan Pit. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yes.
The ones that got reused in Waters of Mars, and then again and again and again and again and again. I'm glad that we got different spacesuits, and this time the spacesuits are the thing killing you, which is a terrifying idea for an astronaut.
Mm-hmm. I really liked that the Doctor, his ego, like gets in the way. Like they get there, he's like, oh, I have an air bubble around the TARDIS, and then he has to expand it. And he presumes that everything will be fine, and so they're walking around this space station with no oxygen except the oxygen that he's added, and then it bites them in the ass. Because if they had brought their own spacesuits, they would have been fine. But it's because they didn't, and they had to use the ones that were on hand that they got fucked.
Right. There's also some good humor in this episode. This is, of course, the first episode where Nardole becomes a fixture of the TARDIS team. Goes along for the adventure, and he's great in this. No, not willingly, but he's great in this. There's a wonderful moment of improv where they meet the blue character, and he says, "Oh, you're blue. Some of my best friends are bluish." That wasn't in the script. That was just that guy being
Matt Lucas,
being oh so silly. But
the racism between Bill and the blue guy was really funny. I wish they'd done more with it.
That was hilarious. I loved that moment. where he was like, why would they be racist against you? Like, because he doesn't understand. He's never encountered human racism toward each other because he's in
Right.
this far-flung future where apparently we've gotten past all that. Oh, science fiction. Uh, but yes, I thought that was really clever. Just a lot of really clever things in this episode. A lot of good concepts, and ultimately that's what I come to sci-fi for. And ultimately that's why I thought that I loved this so much more than the first three episodes, because it was just really strong in the sci-fi department.
It's really good in the drama department as well. It's a
Yeah,
good standalone story that puts the Doctor and all the characters in a really dramatic and tense situation, and they actually deal with real consequences for it.
and it had a similar thing to the episode you were referring to earlier. Listen, or the Ghost two-parter. It's probably more similar to the Ghost two-parter from season 9. The Ghost two-parter from season 9 opened with him explaining what a bootstrap paradox is, and then pretty much the entire plot of that episode hinged on a bootstrap paradox. So, and they did a similar thing in this episode where it opens with him giving a lecture to a group of children, or not children, but a group of college people,
Group of fucking
explaining
kindergartners about to die in space.
like space and how you die in space and how long you can survive in the vacuum of space, which is not instant death like we were all raised to believe.
Mommy!
You can actually survive for like a minute before you die in space, which is interesting. But so he's giving that
would
lecture.
be going through your head. Probably nothing, because you'd be screaming.
So he's giving that lecture, and then later on in the episode, he winds up having to be exposed to the vacuum of space for a period of time because he gives his helmet to Bill, and he survives. The idea, I guess, being that Time Lords can survive a little bit longer in the vacuum than a human can, but he's still been exposed to it for too long. And what I liked about it was we actually got some consequences to that. How did you feel about the period of time in this season in which the Doctor was blind, starting here in Oxygen? Now,
Loved
this
it.
might have been a better question to ask you in the next episode because we don't even find out he's blind until the end of the episode. But yeah, I really liked that there was.
No, I mean, you know he's blind. It's more that you don't find out that he's still blind until the end of the episode.
That's right.
Because
You're
he's
right.
like, oh, I have stuff on the TARDIS that'll fix this in a cinch. No, he doesn't.
Yeah,
He's a
that's
liar.
right. I forgot.
He's full of shit.
You're right. They did know he was blind, but they thought he had fixed it. That's a good point.
That's great. It's brilliant.
I loved, just consequences for something that happened on an adventure that then carry on into the next couple episodes. And then even when they wind up fixing that thing that happened, it comes with its own set of consequences, which is just, that's good writing. They shat it away later on, but it was a good idea.
The blindness you're talking about?
No, the consequences of what happened in order to fix the blindness kind of fell apart. We'll get to that very shortly.
We'll see about that actually. Yes, we'll talk about that. I really liked the blindness. I thought that as a way to slow the Doctor down, it was a good way to do it without making him suddenly a hindrance to all the other characters. Where suddenly it's like you take him out of his own show. Like, he's still the Doctor. He can still do certain things the other characters can't, but he can't read.
Yeah, and he works it,
which is problematic in the next episode.
He works around it in interesting ways. Like in the next episode, he's wearing those the sunglasses or whatever that give him like this weird sort of Terminator view.
Well,
of the world.
They're the Sonic glasses that he had last season. Because you remember there was a time he didn't have a Sonic.
Yeah, I remember. I hate the Sonic sunglasses, but they were used for something much more interesting here, where he gets like that weird sort of like Terminator view of the world around him, but it has limitations. Like he can't see anything unless it's moving. He just sort of has like like a basic map of the environment in front of him. So he has sort of a tech workaround, but he's still very much hobbled by this for the next couple episodes, and that I love that. That's wonderful. The Doctor spends so much time in this show just being this unstoppable force of nature, and anything you can do to make him have to limp a little is good, for the stakes.
Without question. So I think this episode overall is really good. Oh, one last thing I'll ask you: Do they almost kill Bill too many times, because it happens in this, where she's like properly dead for a hot minute, and then they bring her back because of reasons, and then
well, she wasn't. Well, that was the thing. She wasn't actually dead. I don't remember the exact explanation, but I'm okay with that, just because it wasn't killing her and then bringing her back to life in some sort of stupid way. It was an actual like workaround that had thought put into it, where like, oh, we'll fool you into thinking she's dead, but actually it's this other thing going on. And then the other thing that you're talking about that happens in the finale, which again we'll get to that eventually.
So it didn't bug me as much in this, but like it feels like it definitely feels like something. It felt very Moffat-y to me for sure. But all right, why don't we move on to Extremis, and then I think what we'll do is we'll cut it off there, because then that's 6 we will have discussed, and we can save the rest of them for next time. Because the next time then it'll be the Pyramid 2-parter. There's 2 standalones in between that, and then it's the finale 2-parter. So I think that'll work out well.
Yes.
We're not gonna break this up into 2 weeks though. We'll you and I will sit down and record this sooner than that, and we can finish it off, and we'll release these in disbanded apart by a couple days. But we'll talk about Extremis first, because it's sort of connected to the next 2, but very tangential. It's so good. I love this one.
It's very similar to the 3-parters from like the season finales of like seasons 3 and 4, where you would have an episode that was kind of connected to the 2-parter at the end, but not really. It's a little bit more connected even than some of those, because like at the end of season 3 you had Utopia, which pretty much only existed to reintroduce the Master, and then in season 4 you had the turn left episode, which is a great episode, which
that is a great episode,
which set up Roast coming back for the finale. And this is a thing that they've done before. It's kind of sort of a 3-parter.
It's interesting though, because this one's unique for a certain reason, because it doesn't really happen.
Right, yeah.
Well, it sort of happens. It just happens. It doesn't happen in the way you think it happens.
Of the 3 parts of this 3-parter, I think this is the best.
Yes, I would also have to say so. It's not that the other 2 parts are bad. It's just that they don't.
I'd argue that one of them is bad. I think they decline in quality as they go on, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, no,
next
they do.
time,
They definitely do. I don't know if it's to the extent that maybe it sounds like you do. We'll talk about it in the next episode. But I think that this one is the best, just based on sheer uniqueness.
Yes. So, what if I told you that the Doctor was in the Matrix? It's essentially plot of this episode.
Well, it was another thing where it's like, so Moffat introduces some mystery thing that we don't know exactly what's going on, and we're going to find out what the deal is at the end of the episode with the scroll, the Veritas scroll or whatever.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Moffat has made a career out of, faking the Doctor out of death. Mm-hmm. But this time, he did a very different thing. The Doctor didn't get faked out of death. It was just a fake Doctor who was dying. Because we find out that the Doctor who we've been following for this entire episode is in fact just part of this computer simulation that these aliens called the monks are using to figure out how to invade Earth, which doesn't really make sense, because the way they do it in the next episode seems like they could have done it without having to run a simulation.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they needed to do that at all.
It doesn't really seem connected. Maybe it was just in order to try and figure out if anything could go. I don't know. That's one thing that can maybe be criticized about this 3-parter, is that the plot of this.
That's why this is the best one, though, because that element of it is really the most interesting part.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a good idea for that aliens run simulation, because that's what we would do if we were going to attack an alien planet. We would run simulations on how to do it.
Exactly. It's good shit. It's really good shit. It's like the last episode in Oxygen, in that it's very strong on a conceptual level, like a really like good hard sci-fi level that Doctor Who doesn't always achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're. That's a good point. Because sometimes it's too ridiculous to work on that level.
Right. Doctor Who is interesting as a show because at times it's hard sci-fi, and then at other times it drifts more into science fantasy. It sort of rides the line between those two pretty often. But this is straight up on the hard sci-fi side. It's pretty ingenious in the way that they execute it, and this is a script that was written exclusively by Stephen Moffat. Mm-hmm. So
is this his best solo script of the season? It might be.
No.
No?
No. World Enough in Time is. But it's his second best, I think.
I think I might like this better than that. But yeah, all right, we'll put them neck and neck for now until we talk about that one later. But I think
it's interesting. Both of those are very much land on the side of hard sci-fi. Stephen Moffat really pulled it out this season.
He whipped it out big time. I think this one is also really good at balancing out like having fun with itself at the same time as being really heavy hard sci-fi. Like when the Pope, yeah. I mean, I know that this doesn't really happen because it's in the Matrix or whatever, but when the Pope bursts into Bill's room when she's flirting with her lesbian girlfriend, like that's good shit. Like that's really good shit. It's very classic Doctor Who. So like that's a very like. That's something that would happen to Clara or Amy or Bill or Rose or anybody.
That's so reminiscent of that moment from season 5 where the Doctor gets done having an adventure with Amy, and then the phone rings and it's Winston Churchill, and he's like, "I need you to come here. There's a friggin' Dalek in my office."
That's a great moment. There's a Dalek in my house, and I'm like, "Oh God."
Great moments that you can only really get in Doctor Who, where just the insanity reaches a level that is so surreal and wonderful. So yeah, the Pope bursts in on her trying to have sex with a woman, which may be frowned upon by the Catholic Church. Not
depends on which Pope that's supposed to be.
Not you would think that pedophilia would be more frowned on by the Catholic Church, but whatever. No, but
to each his own.
That's a great moment. But this is also notable, besides the whole Matrix thing, this is also notable for being the episode that explains Missy being in the vault.
Because we're getting flashbacks to when she was supposed to be executed by whoever the fuck they were supposed to be. I didn't follow that at all.
Well, it's explained as this race of people. It's a race of space executioners. It's a very Doctor Who kind of thing.
When did they get their hands on her?
Well, we don't have an explanation for that. I would like to think that she was delivered to them by the Shadow Proclamation, maybe, because they have the Jadoon, which is an entire race of aliens whose one function is to be space cops. I think it would be interesting.
They're fucking terrible at it, aren't they?
Yeah, they have space cops, so why not a race of space executioners? I'm
not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying I didn't remember that.
There's also a race in the Sarah Jane Adventures that these big vulture things who only exist as to be like the undertakers of the universe. Like they just scour the universe looking for unidentified bodies and then returning them to where they belong. Like there's all kinds of things like that in Doctor Who, where there's an entire alien race that exists to do one job, and then failing at it. But so yeah, they're space executioners. The Doctor is supposed to execute Missy.
Well, because they say they have to get somebody of the same species to do it. Yeah. Which seems like a bad idea.
Which seems like, why do we need space executioners then?
Yeah, what's the point of them then? Like they're not the executioners. They're the ones. They're like the overseers. They're like the district managers.
Their job is to facilitate the execution. I mean, they build the machine that would have stopped both of her hearts instantaneously and killed her. So that's
they don't
impressive.
Even seem like they're that good at it.
They built a machine that can kill a Time Lord, so it's cool. But yeah. But enough about the space executioners.
Technically, I could build a machine that could kill a Time Lord. It's called a nail with a baseball bat with a nail in it. I just have to get in close enough.
Yeah, but then they regenerate, and if you're
not if I hit them hard enough.
You gotta be careful to kill them before they start regenerating, or else they do that River Song shit where all of a sudden they have like an atomic pulse like Godzilla.
Wasn't that just because she had the bullets in her?
Or even better, they pull the fucking Matt Smith thing from Trenzalore and fire a fucking Kamehameha wave at you. But
That's because he had the energy of a new regeneration cycle.
yeah, it was. But even still, like they that's been a thing in New Who.
I
Like,
didn't like that anyway. I didn't like that the Doctor was suddenly like pulling Dragon Ball Z moves out to solve his problems.
yeah, like the Doctor should not go Masenko. Not just not who he is, man.
No, not at
But
all.
regeneration energy has always been a little destructive in New Who. I mean, it totaled his TARDIS at the end of time. Uh,
Yeah, it seemed like he was actively trying to destroy it.
he's used it as a weapon before, but not to the same extent as Matt Smith did at the end of Trenzalore. And like you said, they had the excuse of it being a regeneration cycle. So it's basically a regeneration bigger than any regeneration ever. You know.
It was also like he uses it like a Kamehameha wave, and then he's younger again, but he hasn't regenerated yet. And then suddenly he just sneezes, and then he's Peter Capaldi.
At what point does he just become like Rassilon and have unlimited regenerations? Or weirder yet, become some sort of weird Omega, no longer having a body sort of thing. Like,
I don't know.
eventually...
I mean, they say that the Time Lords don't actually have a limit on their regenerations; that's just imposed by the species. So they can go he can go as long as he or she or it can go as long as it wants.
Right. But that's weird though, because in the Five Doctors, it's like it's played up as this very special thing that Rassilon was immortal and like could basically live forever. Like that was like the one thing that even the other Time Lords didn't have, regardless of the fact that they could keep regenerating. And then the whole plot of that episode was the villain trying to get immortality for himself. Have you ever seen the Five Doctors? It's a pretty good episode.
No, because I've always heard of I've always heard the stories like, oh, Tom Baker's not actually in it.
Yeah, there are some weird sort of production things that are happening with it. But they managed to do something kind of interesting with that. They took footage
Isn't
from...
the Fourth Doctor like thrown into some like other dimension or something?
He's like trapped in like a time loop or something, and so he can't actually be there for the action, but the other doctors have to solve the thing that's going on in order to get him untrapped from the thing. And the way they did it is they took footage from an episode, a Tom Baker episode that never got finished. They just took that footage and put it into the Five Doctors, and so you basically just see him and Romana like on a date seemingly, and then all of a sudden they get sort of trapped in this weird time thingy. So they worked around it pretty cleverly. But it's still a good episode, despite that.
Just like this one.
And despite the fact that Hartnell is dead. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Three Doctors, but it's up there.
I like all the Roman Vatican shit as well.
Yeah. Oh, so what I was trying to say before, there is a nice little moment when you're in the flashbacks on that Executioner planet where you're not sure whether the Doctor is going to be executing Missy or if it's going to be the other way around.
Yeah. Initially, you think Missy is getting the Doctor executed.
Well, at first I thought it's the Doctor assassinating Missy, but they did this really clever thing through the dialogue where I was like, wait, is it the other way around? And then it turned out, yeah, it was the Doctor was supposed to execute Missy. And he winds up going against the space executioners and taking her back to his planet, back to Earth. And basically that's why he has to
Probably really stupidly.
Basically, he accepts responsibility for her, and that's why he gets to take her back to Earth and keep her in the vault.
Well, because there's this interesting idea of if you kill a Time Lord, you have to guard the body for 1,000 years just to make sure. And he's like, I'm going to do that. I'm just not going to kill her. And I'm like, oh, that's a clever way to get around that.
Yeah.
I really dug all that.
Yeah, that was all cool. How did you like the fact that we found out what was in the box midway through the season? I thought it was a refreshing change of pace to not do what they typically do with Doctor Who.
I would have been about finding out earlier, to be honest. But yeah, no, I thought that was very refreshing.
And then we got something really interesting in the second half of the season, which we'll talk about next time, which is how the relationship between the Doctor and Missy took the forefront of the season, as opposed to what it had been before, which was hijinks with Bill and Nardole. But yeah, that was all cool stuff. How do you feel about the monks as a new Doctor Who villain? Do you think Stephen Moffat managed to pull out one more good new monster before he went out, or do you think they're kind of not that great? And
again, I think they're better conceptually than they are in execution. They look better conceptually than they do in execution. I don't like that the voices don't match up with the way the mouths move. That's really distracting. I don't know. I feel like
I thought the idea that they were actually like communicating like telepathically or something. But
they
then why does the
looked
mouth
too similar to the scorched lava people in that Pompeii episode. Do you remember that? The Fires of Pompeii?
Yeah, it's also kind of hard not to get them confused with the headless monks from season 6.
Yes, I just thought they were too generic design-wise.
Yeah.
I liked the bit where somebody was like, "Why do you guys look like corpses?" And they're like, "We look like how you look to us." And I'm like, "That's really creepy."
They're fine though. They're like, they're not as good as the Angels or the Vashta Nerada or the
No,
Gas
of
Mask.
course not. No.
Any of Moffat's other great creations, but they're better than like Mark Gaddis's Eyebooger monsters. Ugh.
That's certainly true. I
Thank
would
God
say that they're even better than like, I don't know.
That Eyebooger monster episode was supposed to get a sequel this season, by the way, and I was dreading that. But then I was pleasantly surprised that he decided to write the Empress of Mars instead. Which that's not me saying that the Empress of Mars is great. You'll have to tune in next time to find out if I like that or not. It's just me saying that I'm glad I didn't get the Eyebooger monsters again. But
I was pleasantly surprised by how good the Italian actors were.
Yeah.
Because when they got American actors, like in that Christmas special last time, whoo boy, that was not good. We talked about that.
Were they actually American actors though, or were they just British actors
in that
putting on
superhero episode? Yeah, no, those they got American actors.
Oh, that's the one you're talking about. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely, because that was the kid from Dragon Ball Evolution. There's also been a thing though in Doctor Who past, like in The Daleks Take Manhattan, where you have like horrible American accents being put on by British actors.
Yeah, well, at least there's an excuse that Andrew Garfield's in that. That was weird.
It is weird. I forgot about that until recently, and then I watched that episode again for reasons of masochism.
The Spider-Man we've all forgot about.
I was like, oh, Spider-Man is in this episode. I forgot about him being in this episode, and also about him being Spider-Man.
And about him being Spider-Man, yep. No, he was a good Spider-Man in bad movies. Well, the first one wasn't that bad.
He was a good Spider-Man, but he was a terrible Peter Parker.
He wasn't a great Peter Parker. Anyway, so I love the way it ends. So the idea of the Doctor subroutine program in the simulation becoming self-aware and sending a message to the real Doctor is brilliant.
Via email.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if that works totally. However, if any digital subroutine in a simulation is gonna become self-aware and figure out how to send an email, it's gonna be the Doctor. So that makes sense to me then.
Right. Again, if Rick from Rick and Morty was ever going to be a Doctor, it would be this one. And if Rick was in that situation, he would have done the same thing. It's totally viable just because he's a simulation of the Doctor. A simulated human or even simulated Nardole who was clever enough to figure out that they were in a simulation to begin with wouldn't have been able to figure that out. But because it's a simulation of the Doctor, you can buy it, because he's supposed to be the smartest person in the universe. So
God, the realization that Nardole was simulated, though. Oh my God.
Right, yeah, and then he dies, and you think, what the fuck?
Yeah. Like and realizes that he's not real. Like, that's so fucked, And
at that point, you're not even sure what's going on completely yet, because that's before Bill and the Doctor go to that place where they explain the numbers thing.
I thought that Nardole was always a simulation. Like, what the hell? But no, it's not what's going on at all.
Yeah, I thought that at first too. I was like, is Bill a simulation? Are they all have they all been simulation? Is everything a simulation?
I was like, is the entire universe like a simulation? Like, including all the Doctors? Like,
have the past 50 years of Doctor Who been nothing but balls? Stephen Moffat, I mean, nothing but balls, nothing but lies. Stephen Moffat, where did you grow these balls all of a sudden? Yeah, I was thinking one sentence ahead. Yeah, so that was great. There was a lot of intrigue going on here.
Mm-hmm. I also
and
he also got to sneak in another creepy like simple sound or number or like he has this blinking and the way the silence works and all that. And this is when you tap and you all say a number at the same time. It's always the same number. That weird kind of synchronization that shows you that you're all simulated.
Right. Yeah.
That's really effective and very creepy.
That episode made me want to go do that with somebody in the real world.
Yeah,
just to make sure.
yeah.
Like it gets inside your head in a way that I don't even think like the Matrix does, because the Matrix does it in like an action movie way, and this does it in like a that's fucked up way, you know.
Right.
Brilliant though, just brilliant.
Definitely.
Also, a nice bit of extra intrigue built in with the Doctor trying to keep his continuing blindness a secret from Bill. That's something that will carry over into the next episode, but I that's very interesting.
Yes. And we shall
I don't want to get too far into the nitty gritty about the plots of this episode because I don't want to spoil too much of the intrigue. Extremist, though, everybody, wonderful episode. If you haven't seen season 10 yet, if you're on the fence, if you're like Bill was and you're thinking, season 9 was so shitty, do I really want to try season 10? Yes, you do, for at least a couple of reasons, and Extremist is one of them.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of the best episodes, and just to see Moffat really back up to snuff on his own in a largely self-contained episode too.
Even if you don't like the stuff with the Missy flashbacks, and I know that there are some people who didn't, you still have enough going on for you in the main plot that it's a worthwhile episode to watch. I loved both of those things, so it's a great episode for me.
Definitely one of my favorites of the whole season. But we will continue to march onwards in part 2 when we discuss the remaining 6 episodes and we discuss the 2-part continuation where the monks don't simulate their takeover, they actually take over in a very different way than your typical Doctor Who villain, but we'll discuss that next time. So
yes.
Join us in a few days for part 2 of episode 118 of the Demons from Outer Space, where we continue to talk about people turning into gasoline and fish lard. That was another thing we talked about.
You'll get much more than that. You'll get the continuation of the Extremis plot line with a 2-parter that starts out great. You'll get rare character development for the Ice Warriors, which is a race that doesn't often get new shit added to it in the Doctor Who canon. You'll get for the first time, a writer from Classic Who returning to New Who to varying degrees of success, and you will get a fantastic 2-part season finale. So come back next time for all of that. It'll be well worth your time.
All right, so we'll see you then. Until then, I'm Bill Worcester, aka Zazubaar.
I'm Super DM64.
And you can't see us because it's a podcast, Colonel Hogan.